This is the last of our recorded Zoom talks for the exhibits we've been having funded, underwritten by the President's Imagination Mini Grant. I hope, and if I were a praying man, I would pray that, certainly this wouldn't be the last conversation we'll actually have. But this wraps up our consideration of Charles's work that's been on exhibit since the fall. The topic of race in art and the societal force that art can be. Today we're looking at putting Charles's work into the context of other Black artists, trained Black artists, not folk artists, because I think that's the group that most people tend to associate with, for lack of a better word, Black art. I know Charles has some issues with that term. And so I wanted to, if you would, talk to us about community and how you see yourself as part of an artistic community, and also give us some insight into the work of some of your contemporaries.
I think it's, community is such a very precious word to me. And I use the word precious because my humble beginnings have started when I was growing up in small town Georgetown, and my mother, I hated this, and I'll still say this, but I hated the fact that it was forced upon me to serve, right? And it was every week we had to serve the community, in multiple capacities, spiritually and religiously. So we would have to serve food, or we would have to sing in the choir, or we would have to, do something on the usher board, or we would have to go to another church and help their youth group in some way, in shape or form. So over the years doing that, it gave me an insight on the aspect of devotion. And I think what happens, fast forward, when I look at community and the word community, that's what I feel that is lost. Some people may call it soul. Some people may call it connection, but I call it devotion because there is a spiritual sense in connecting. And how art plays in this is that, and how I understood how art has a role in this, is that when people got together and spoke about their lives, it was in a way that was humbling. It was in a way that was transparent. It was in a way that was authentic. It was in a way that allowed the person to get a glimpse of putting themselves in their shoes. And the term devotion that was used in the Baptist church that I went to, that term devotion was done every Sunday. And at the end of the devotional time, each person that shared would say, they would leave the conversation, or they would leave the statement by saying, and I just asked the church to please pray for me. So there was an interactive component to the devotion. And so from those years of just consistently being involved in that, like I said, I hated it, but it was very, I was sharpening my observational skills to, therefore, when it came time for me to want to insert myself into the art canon and make some sort of case or statement, or speak about things that I was concerned about, the plight of African Americans, the plight of racial injustice, etc., I was actually looking inward. What were some of my own personal experiences that I was able to tap into that that I was being able to that I was allowed and gave permission to be authentic and transparent and to be able to share that connection with others. And so when I make a piece, when I make work, it is a cathartic but also devotional piece that people can engage in, that they can investigate, that they can actually put themselves in the works. And then also the final thing is that they leave with an interactive fellowship. And so that's what we're doing here today, Mike. And so I continue to advocate for that art, the need and the necessity for art to remain and to be in our world. It is for us to be able to have a community. And it's also for us to be able to share devotion. Because that is the thing that I think that can transcend us from some of these topics and some of these injustice and some of the things that are going on. Like literally, and I'll just share this, like 2 nights ago, I got pulled over because I didn't stop at a stop sign. And it wasn't just one cop car, it was two cop cars. And I'm thinking to myself, now, if it was someone else, it wouldn't have been two cop cars. It would have just been one. Like, why the obsessiveness of two instead of one, right? And so again, that's where I can go that's why I say artwork can be cathartic for me, because I can go in the studio and make work. And then it's a conversation and it's a piece that therefore the community can share and interact with. So that's why art is needed, and that's why community is important. It's a continuation of conversation. So I hope that answers your question.
That does, and it what you were saying about art as a kind of devotional experience, I think, and I don't want this to be about me, but I think that those issues I've talked to you about my qualms about how much I like your work, even at its most horrific.
Yeah.
That if it is a devotional experience that, and this is something we talked about with Chokehold, if the man being choked in that picture can be read as a Christ figure, there's not a lot of difference. There's a very thin line separating your work from medieval or Renaissance paintings of martyrs and of the crucifixion.
Yeah.
And I think in our society, if someone admires those works, nothing untoward is thought about that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's devotional for me. Like, for example, Chokehold, like the piece Chokehold, those experiences of seeing African Americans being suffocated by their own humanity, it is something that every single day when I walk out my house, I have to deal with that. So I said to myself, okay, other cultures, other people have experienced this in some way, shape, or form, emotionally, right? And I said to myself, okay, well, the artist that I thought, Goya, who successfully documented a horrific time, and just from a documentary standpoint, he was able to do some things in his etchings that um, that were transformative. Repeating the image multiple times throughout the etchings, but had slight differences in the repetition. He would, alter the color in regard and the color in regards to the perpetrator and the victim, and then he would insert his own religious. He would also insert religious iconography into it, and sometimes his own opinions. So it's sort of what he was doing is just commenting and sharing commentary of this is what is going on. But what I learned from it was I can even elevate it and take it further. So the series, the piece Chokehold, I can literally elevate it from a devotional space, and that means elevating it from a aesthetics standpoint, meaning like the sophistication of the making, the craftsmanship of it. And then while I'm creating the piece, the emotions that I feel from my own personal experiences, what physical mark making can I make that will psychologically embody that emotion? So when you look at Chokehold, for example, there are intentional mark makings and strokes that conveys a psychological emotion based on not just mimicking what I see from the photograph, but what I'm internalizing and pouring out onto the surface. And so, what I've been able to hear and see from people looking at the piece is there's a curiosity, there's an awe, there's a perception that they too want to investigate even further, and that's why every piece for me is a devotional piece. So,
do you think that along with that curiosity, that desire to investigate further in a painting like that, is there a hesitancy as well? Like people want to move forward, but they're afraid to?
yeah, yeah. But what I have also learned too is that if I don't, I think some of the best artists, the best, I'll just say artists, and I'll just use music for example. Like one of my favorite songs is Simply Red. It's the group called Simply Red, and they're from Europe. And one of my favorite songs is called "I Keep Holding On." And when it comes to that video, it's this kid figuring out himself, but tired of the constant not getting ahead, not making it, not feeling accomplished, not feeling successful in whatever way he feels that he should feel successful. So, and what I think is that the best work is raw. The most captivating, transformative work that leaves you having the conversation further is the most authentic work. And the thing about that is the reason why it's raw and it's authentic and it works and you have conversations about it is because at the end of the day, it's all human emotions that we experience. I think often people want to shy away from it, even myself. But the most advocating and prolific thing that you can do to leave your mark in this world and to also insert yourself in the canon is to show the truth. Because that statement, the truth will set you free, it can. And that's why art is so needed. It's people bearing their souls for a cause or a emotion or a time period in their lives that they have to get out. It's a need, it's a necessity. It's like breathing. You have to breathe. It's so creating is a part of all of us, but we just do it in different ways. And so it has to be raw, Mike. It has to be real. It has to be authentic. It has to be. I mean, we could talk about Kendrick Lamar. I mean, there's so many, so much symbolism in his performance at the Super Bowl, but it's like everybody wasn't jumping up and down on the stage in the stage. I mean, not on the stage in the stadium. They were just, you know, they like his music. They like the number one hit that he had about dissing Drake, but they miss the symbolism and the plight of our own history and the plight of African Americans and how this country has been divided and it's just the list goes on and on and on. But here's the thing. Historically, America has been running away from the truth. There were women back in history that were literally, I think it's called the Women of Confederacy. They were literally ripping out the truths, ripping out pages out of the books that were meant for us to learn about our own history, black and white. They were literally taking it out because they wanted to make sure that there was one viewpoint. And just things like that. I'm like, why didn't I not know this? Why wasn't I taught this in school?
Because those pages had been
Right.
out.
Exactly. So it's like, I can't just, Nina Simone said this so well. And every time I see the video, she says, I tear up even now just thinking about it. She says, you can't be an artist if you're not talking about the signs of the time. She's like, I don't understand how you can avoid that. So whatever's going on in office, whatever is going on in your world, in your life, you got to talk about it. That's part of advocating for yourself. That's actually called self-love. That's actually loving yourself. And so you can show others and share your vision and share your thoughts and share your ideas and share your concerns, but and you can do it through art as a or music or whatever method, but at the end of the day you're showing others what love is. And then that goes back to the devotion, which goes back to community. If we literally took the issues or concerns and showed the devotion, like we are devoted to the love and the advocacy of all humans, come on. We really wouldn't be sitting here talking about it. And that's why community is so important. So anyway, I like that word. I think it's such a strong, powerful word. That's why I say it's precious. I said at the beginning, the word community is so precious to me.
I was just thinking what you were saying about we certainly haven't gotten to that point. We're not even close to getting to that point. But like women ripping out pages to have a sanitized history is being repeated right now with bans on books, removing books from libraries, which for a lot of people are their only access to books. And it all comes full circle back to put your hands where my eyes can see, all of those paintings where who controls the narrative?
Who controls the narrative? I mean, if we think about it, like you think about the the statement, the term "in God we trust." It's on every dollar bill, right? When you think about just all of the documentations that stated from the very beginning of this country being built, incorporating God, and now praying in schools are not even allowed. you know, and I mean, some schools don't even say the Pledge of Allegiance anymore.
And as your film that you
Yeah.
shared with me
Yeah.
showed, even if they were saying that,
Mm-hmm.
is there really justice and liberty for all or for some?
Or some. That's why two cop cars pulled up
Pulled
behind.
you over.
Exactly. I'm like, now mind you, my partner was in the car with me. And I'm like, and she was like even saying like, what, this is excessive. Like she was saying that, and I'm just like, I know. Just from, and again, and so the thing is that my mom and my dad always said to me growing up, and I would actually hate them saying it, but I found it to be true. They would tell me all the time, you gotta work harder. You gotta work twice as harder than the white man. And I never like, at first I didn't understand it. But then later on, as I got older, I understood it. And then as I've gotten into my adult age, yes, it is a true statement. Because the reason why you have to work harder, me as an African American, I have to work harder than a white man, is because my partner was literally calming me down in the car. Because I'm like, what the heck? Why am I, why is all of this happening just from me? Like, and I did stop. I just didn't stop long enough.
Enough.
And I'm like, why is this happening? This is 2 nights ago. And I had to work harder to control my emotions, to control myself, for her to calm me down because she knew it wasn't right. When another person who would get pulled over, they wouldn't have to work that hard, you know? And that's the injustice in that I'm just like, man, like it still happens. It still happens.
Well, to potentially save your life, you have to convince them that no, you are not the threat that they perceive you to be.
And because let's just say I showed respect when I didn't feel that I needed to. He said, have a good night, Mr. Williams. Now, mind you, didn't get a ticket, didn't get no warning. He didn't even say, uh, you know, try to stay long at the stoplight. He's just like, have a good night, Mr. I'm like, and I literally I'm talking to my wife. I'm like, why? Like, he didn't even explain himself. That's the mind-boggling thing. So anyway, that's the statement that my parents was instilling in me. And I gave him respect because when he tapped on the window, I said, I had my hands on the steering wheel and I said, is everything okay, officer? And he just said, license. I said, yes, sir. Now, even me saying yes, sir was kind of like, why do I have to say that? Why, why, you know, but it's like, again, I'm like trying to work hard to save my emotion, to control my emotion and save my life. Anyway, it still bothers me, but
Well, as it should. Well, okay, what sets you apart from another black man being pulled over? One, you're clearly educated. To the thing that's not going to be noticed noticed on the surface is your talent, that you can actually do something with this. Other people are left with nothing but the residual rage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I would assume this is going to make it into your work in some
Oh, oh
way.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And but you know too, every person going back to your statement of being talented, every African American, every person, let me just say that every person has a gift. But because we're talking about the context, every African American that has been wrongfully killed has a talent, and their lives were taken from them. Right? When an artist paints um, a representation of an African American or a human being that's black, it's not. He's literally saying the same thing that all African American artists are saying, all black artists are saying, is, hey, stop lumping us all together and look at us as an individual. Now, aesthetically, on the paintings or in the drawings or in the sculptures, they're different mediums. But every single black artist is saying the same thing. Can you take 5 minutes or more? Can you just take enough time to care, to see us, that we share the same emotions? Because if you continue to show us that you're up here and we're down there, what do you want us to do? It's like the statement. It's like when people. It's like when when we see on the news, black people rioting, and and we could sit in our homes, black and white people can sit in their homes and be like, well, they shouldn't be tearing up the cities, and they shouldn't be rioting, and they shouldn't be. Well, what do you expect them to do? People get tired of not being heard. People get tired of not feeling they are part of something. And the thing that like I've witnessed over history is black Americans, we will forgive so willingly. Right? We just want the same thing, the same treatment. Like we get it that you did stuff in the past, we get it that things happened historically. We're cool. We're good. We don't have to talk about what we do need to talk about it, but we don't have to continue to talk about it to get in a way that puts us down here and you up there. Right. And that's what has been happening, is that there's still like this hierarchy that is still established in these conversations. I love that. That's why you and I, when we get together, we talk about these, because I don't see I don't see a hierarchy. There is just two men talking, two humans talking and sharing our thoughts, our concerns, our feelings. We're on one accord. You and I have community. And so when we see this in the news and in our world for like vandalizing and shootings and killings of things that we don't understand, it's because we just want to be seen. The Jim Crow law. I mean, there were specific things in place to keep us, let's just say, marginalized or in order. And again, the artwork, that's out there, it needs to be discussed, because that's the closest thing to feeling heard that sometimes we get. I was telling my wife the other day, I said, Black people have a different view when it comes to politics. And the reason why is because typically when you look on news media outlets, CNN and Fox News and stuff, there's a disconnect. There's a hierarchy that's disconnect from the actual reality. And the reality is people are just trying to survive. They're just trying to live a good life the best they can. Anyway, I might be getting off topic, but this is like I said, when I say you hit the nail on the head in the word community, it's so prescient, it's so deep.
Well, I don't think you're getting off topic at all. You made me think of a couple of things as a kind of segue to some of the
Yeah.
work we were
Yeah.
going to talk about.
Oh yeah.
You
Yeah.
said you said that Jim Crow laws were designed to keep people marginalized,
Mm-hmm.
or more accurately, keep people in their place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a video I've of just me in the gallery that Matt made.
Mm-hmm.
I started with the prologue to Invisible Man,
Mm-hmm.
and it made me think then of the scene in the first chapter, Battle Royal,
Yeah.
which I've taught many times and taught in the context of an all black classroom
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and an all white classroom with, as you can imagine, extremely different reactions.
Mm-hmm.
Once teaching it with a single black student,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of ended up he and I having a conversation about the story while everyone else,
Yeah.
seemed to hold their breath.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's a character in Battle Royal who tells him, when he makes the mistake of not saying social responsibility, but says social equality.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the powerful white men of the town says, "Well, boy, we mean to do right by you, but you've got to know your place at all times." And part of knowing your place at all times is how you appear.
Yes.
So I was thinking about Steve Cozart's Defiant One,
Yeah.
and the dapper suit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was thinking about John Alleen's Protective Dreadlock Styles,
Mm-hmm.
and the dreadlocks, which
Yeah.
that it's amazing the hair can threaten so many people. Is that the typical reaction? And are those two artists addressing in a not in as direct a way as you do in some of your work, but addressing the same issues through these markers of identity, these physical markers of identity?
Yeah. I mean, they are addressing the same issues. I think that also too, when it comes to Cozart's works with the Dapper, that suggestive presentation. It can kind of go both ways. It could go, well, there's a sense of self. But then there's also the other way that it can go is like, okay, you're a sellout, and depending on who's looking at it from their own lens, you can get those both perspectives. I know for me, when it comes to hair, how I was raised, now I don't agree with it, but this is how I was raised, was that we had to be neat and presentable. We had to make sure that we were clean cut, shaved, because we needed to give this perception of trustworthy. And so I grew up watching my father shave, and I grew up watching him shave, shine his boots, and I grew up learning how to tie a tie, and all the things, to carry a comb in my pocket, to tuck. I hated all of this, but to tuck my shirt in, I would always have my shirt tucked in, growing up, but that was because of force. And the reason why I use the word hate, I know it's a strong word, but there were things, even as a child, that I saw, that I picked up on. I'm like, why do we have to be so perfect? Like, why? Like, you know what I mean? Like, as a black man, like, or a black person, like, why do we have to be so perfect? Like, and I could tell even when going in in stores, like it was such a military like feel. We couldn't touch nothing. We had to walk in the stores with our hands behind our back, like, and we noticed there were, the looks and stuff. But my mom was trying to make sure that she protected us. So going back to the artwork, I think, and others, like you said, have a subtle way of doing it, or some just come boldly and, and put it out there. But what I like about with Stephen Kozart's work is um, there's an educational component to it. There is I won't say there's more of a, I won't say that, I will say that the education is more than the investigation from his work for me. Um, because of what I think, because I know him very well, and he is an educator. What I see from his work is that when he puts the underlayering tones, that's a literal sense of, hey, look at the underlayers that you've missed. You look at the education that is being taught of the racial injustice of, Black people. And so, he has these undertones in all of his works. Now, his process of investigation is there. The intentionality is there, but it's more of, hey, this is what went on. This is what, and so what he's doing is I think he's personally educating. And again, I say this because I know him. I think he's personally educating white America. That's what I think. Um, although although African, like Black people are seeing his work, well, they already know. So like they already know. So he's educating white America, like, hey, look, these are the things that we have to go, who we had to do and go through. So I want to just make artwork to recontextualize that, hey, this is still going on. So I'm educating you guys about America history because it is all of our history.
And I'm also thinking, and I'm making a really broad, simplistic claim, but he's also educating white people because sadly, those are the bulk of the people who will be in an art gallery or in a museum.
Bingo. Yes. Bingo.
And it's not a sign that others aren't interested, others aren't cultured, but if we live in a society where we're told how to act, how to dress, how to comb our hair, how to cut our hair, we're also, there are certain spaces that are demarcated as
absolutely
you don't belong here.
Right. I mean, when you think about when you think about your master's in fine arts degree, I mean, there was no Black person in that category to make, for you to understand, like, this is the highest level of learning about art and the history of it and the formalities of it, the psychology of it. When it comes to how and why I make work and what I can gather from why other artists, but especially Black artists, make work is because we're trying to infiltrate what was created, and to the point that psychologically there is no division. I would even go so far to say in the next 5 to 10 years, every museum on the planet, you'll see Black art. Because the world is evolving and changing. I mean, you got AI and you got, you got computers making somewhat human beings, you know. So it's like, yeah, I like I said, that whole the psychology of, you know, the segregation that was established in museums, I would say confidently that it's going to be dismantled.
Uh, I hope so, but
Absolutely.
I'm not. Maybe I'm not as optimistic as you. Um,
Well, I'm
and
praying bad. Like, hey, look, I'm a praying bad. So,
um, and I was also thinking about John Alvin with the
mm,
dreadlocks,
yeah. Oh, sorry, I didn't
which are
mention that too.
modeled over on his own hair.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean,
and I, the Bohemian artist,
mm,
Tavares Strachan, whom I've talked
hmm
about, he has a series of work of these massive bronze heads with locked hair
yeah,
inserted into them.
yeah.
And he said that growing up in Nashville, that
hmm
if you were proper,
mm,
if you were well
hmm
respectable,
Respectful. Yep.
then your hair was cut short if you were a boy.
Yep.
If you were a girl, it was braided
Yep.
and neat.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
it was out of place,
hmm
if you let it grow naturally and did minimal interference, let
Yeah.
nature take its course,
Yeah.
you were labeled as a rude boy,
Exactly.
which is not only about physical appearance and manners, but also danger, I would think.
You hit the nail on the head. I mean, even subconsciously for me, like if I get like a 5 o'clock shadow on my beard, I'm kind of like, I gotta cut this. Like just psychologically, like it's ingrained. Um, I've tried to let my hair grow out, but it just doesn't. I don't. There's a sense of self that I'm like, oh, this don't feel right. But going back to him, and when it comes to identity, I mean, hair is so important because it reclaims who we are as humans, and that's why there's such a high regard for hair. We've seen in media wherein like teachers or a teacher has cut a child's hair, which is ridiculous. Um, but it has sadly, unfortunately happened. But it's an issue. And that's where it comes back to the conversation of like, okay, even just with products, white hair, there are different products. There are products for white hair, there's products for black hair. But you're literally showing us that our products don't matter. You want us to use your products because you think your products for your white hair is better. Just
Or
even
it's,
go ahead.
or it's universal.
Or universal, right? Like so when it's like you think about the commercials and I like even commercials I see for like hair and it's like, conditioner and shampoo, even just stuff like that. I'm just like, it's called what is the term? Whitewashing. So so yeah, it's ingrained, but I will say, I'm not one that have dreads or anything like that, but I love them and I think they're beautiful, or dreadlocks. And now that I've heard the kids call them locks, but it's just hair is beautiful. Hair is beautiful. I think just for me being 41 and that how I was conditioned and brought up, I get it. Exactly what you were sharing about him and his experience in Nassau. So,
And just, well, with Eileen's, labeling them as protective,
mm-hmm,
I like the idea of
mm-hmm,
them being a kind of armor,
yeah,
because
yeah, strength.
and it goes to Cozart's work as well. That what you
Mm-hmm,
were saying about if you take clothing too far,
Right.
you're going to be argued as a sellout. But
Right.
if you really take it too far
Right.
and exaggerate it,
Exactly.
okay. So let's go back to Kendrick Lamar for a moment.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Who could pull that?
I know what you're gonna say too.
Who
Yeah.
could pull that outfit off?
Right. Right.
Okay. Can you imagine me trying to pull that outfit
I
off?
don't even feel like I could pull that off.
Okay, I'm gonna look like a fool.
I same, same.
And yet for him, it's denoting I can do this.
Right.
I've got the style, I've
Yep.
got the confidence,
Yep.
I've got the courage,
I got the spotlight too.
the spotlight, and it's having that spotlight is going to make a lot of people nervous.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's essentially saying is I'm taking it upon myself to be an example for how we can reclaim self. You know, like in the 70s where afros and bell bottoms and um the term fly, came into play. That essence of reclaiming self is lost. And that's exactly what he was showing in his performance is that yes, the country is divided. Yes, it's projected on us that we got to act right, act straight. That's why, Samuel Jackson was saying, saying his commentary about straighten up, but we hear that every day, but still we don't have to lose ourselves and subject ourselves to what we hear and see. We can reclaim ourselves, which goes back again, like you said it perfectly, the word community. There was so much community back then in the 70s when it came to Black people. And the essence of, I'm fly. There was an attitude, there was a swagger, there was a confidence, there was a protectiveness that was established, you know. And now I think it's just lost and dismantled. So hopefully, because I'll continue to advocate for it, art can be the equalizer. Hopefully.
Well, I think it's another artist you've talked about, Barkley Hendricks,
Oh, yeah.
that his portraits capture that
And it didn't change.
I am fly.
Exactly. And it didn't change. And here's the thing, it didn't need to change. It didn't need to change because, again, another example of before the selfies came out, the term selfie, that's what he was doing. He was painting, he was forecasting the future.
somehow the idea of the selfie that I think bothers me is it's not necessarily a projection out there for other people.
No.
It's vanity or narcissism.
Yes.
And empty because of that.
Right.
Whereas Barkley Hendricks' idea of vanity and narcissism, it's still I'm using the terms in two different ways.
Yeah,
it's projecting outward a personality and a pride. Right.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I was going to touch on that too and clarify, but you already did it for me. You already did it for me because that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
The white man jumping in and claiming something once again.
You are my brother. You are my brother. Will always be. Will always be. Trust me. You don't have to worry about that. You will always be.
So let's talk about William Paul Thomas, who is our other.
Oh yeah, William.
And he's another friend of yours, I believe.
He's another friend of mine. Yeah, great guy. Very sweet man, and I say humbled. When it comes to his works of portraits of people that he knows Black America, and the blue face. It goes back to the essence of suffocating, the plight of being a Black person in America. So the blue face of the blood being taken out of the skin, and so all of those metaphorical assessments of not having a full life is what he's painting, and what he's showing. So, yeah. But again, it goes back to, the same way that Barclay Hendricks is saying, look, let's value self, let's reclaim community, let's keep reimagining what we can be and should be. William Paul Thomas is doing the same thing. Is he's reminding us to never lose focus on what the plight of a Black person, the plight of Black America. Like, never lose focus of that, and to continue to question that, but answer your own question by doing something, which is learning your history, reclaiming self, and moving forward. And that's what his work is all about. So,
And the one portrait I have
mm-hmm.
of his, Champ, and
Mm-hmm.
it's called Living Proof.
Yeah,
And
it's a good one.
I I had to buy it once I knew the
Yeah,
kid's name was Champ, because I thought you're
yeah,
you like to think you're destining that kid for great things.
exactly. Yeah.
But also the painting that he chose, the title he chose for the painting, Living
Mm-hmm.
Proof, that if we're consigned to this idea of the promised land and wait for it to come and be patient,
Yeah.
that why are we having to still wait? And here is this kid who is living proof that we don't have to wait. This is a new generation that may not get stopped by one cop car, let alone two.
It's true. I When you were talking about his name and everything, I was thinking about what I've said jokingly, but honestly mean it. My full name is White in English. And I'm like, Dad, what you thinking? But his name is what, is English. Like, it's Charles Edward Williams II. That's me. And it's his name. My dad's name is Charles Edward Williams. So what I gather from it is that our names, again, going back to hair, our name is so important to us that there's a regal type of essence and identity that has to fit. I think that's why people name their children these strong names, so they don't forget. It's like it's a subtle way, but also impactful way of teaching the child, no, you are great. You came from greatness. Don't look at your circumstances, but understand the valuable impact that you can make on your own life, which therefore is an example to others. And that's why I think he painted Champ, which is a great piece, by the way.
And I was thinking of names because one of my students, who was named John, said his parents deliberately gave him, as you put it, a white name, so that seeing it on paper,
yeah,
no one would remark, oh, here's a Black applicant or a Black student.
My best friend, rest in peace, His name is Ben Franklin, and he is, as they have said in the country, he's black as soot. And I mean, and sometimes people have said he's blue black, but his name is Ben Franklin. I mean, and anyway, I miss him, but that's what it reminds me of. So
And I was also thinking of when you were saying giving children strong names.
yeah, yeah.
I was thinking of the Jaheim song "Fabulous,"
Mm-hmm. Yep, yep.
where there is the line, "We name our kids, give our kids funny names."
Yeah, that's true.
That
What you know about Jaheim?
yeah, and I was just thinking,
Well,
it's like a matter of perspective.
that's what I
That
say. You will always be my brother. You're always.
um,
I love it.
you even if it's a completely hookup name,
Mm-hmm.
which I mean, which is again like we could talk about linguistics and language
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because hookup is not going
Right.
to be typically
Right.
something white people would say.
Exactly.
But if you're giving your child a hookup name,
Mm-hmm.
well, some black people would also say this, you're kind of coming across as ghetto. But in actuality, what you're doing is, like you say, reclaiming, because if I name my child Cornelius or something,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, that's going to sound just as odd, just as funny
Right.
to modern ears,
Yes.
to white ears. But it would be reclaiming and a sense of identity.
When
And
you go ahead. Go ahead.
so I
Sorry.
was just thinking, it all is a matter of perspective, because looks, hair, names,
Yeah.
it's a way of saying, here we are.
Mm-hmm.
We have a culture unto our own.
Yeah.
Do you want to join?
You mentioned the word reclaiming. True story. I had a person that I know. I met her and her mom, and I think she was being funny, but she was talking about her friend and how her black friend always says "what up" and uses the N word. And in the conversation, and I don't know whether I think she was just being funny, but she kept saying the word over and over and over again. And my jaw just dropped. I'm like looking at her like gritting my teeth, but I'm also saying stop with my eyes. And it even made my wife uncomfortable because I'm like, why does she think that this? So her daughter was like, Mom, stop saying it. It's not funny. Like you're talking to, a black man. Is you throwing that word out and saying it. I know you're just telling a story, but she was trying to educate her mom on not to say it. And that's the difference. It's like when it comes to reclaiming of a word that was a derogatory word, or used in a derogatory way, it's okay. It's like it's okay for Black America to say it, but it's like when it comes to a white person saying it, it's not the same. It's just not the same. And so, like you shared earlier, it's like it may be coming across as like being funny, and it's like it's just like when parents give kids name I have a cousin, her name is Shaniqua, but it's like parents give kids those unique names for the same essence of my child is special. My child is going to be someone. My child is going to do great things. So whether the person gives, a child like a strong name like John Henry or Shaniqua, it's the context is still the same. But when a white person says the word Shaniqua, it just somehow doesn't roll off or flow, you know? It doesn't sound right. And so a lot of times white people will butcher the name, you know, and then it's like it comes across as like not dismissive, but just sometimes they'll just go straight to the last name because it
Well,
might be easier to pronounce.
it comes with a value judgment
Oh,
attached.
exactly. Yep.
Whether it's explicit or not,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
there's a value attached.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it could even be, like you said, the intonation,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
an eye roll.
Right. Right. Yeah. Identity is so important. I mean, that's why, like we mentioned this in earlier conversations, why I included a thumbprint on chokehold. Um, even some of my other works, with the Freedom Riders, instead of doing the mug shots, the side and the frontal, I purposely did the frontal portrait of the Freedom Riders, because I wanted people to understand that they are a human being just like them. And that it's important that you know each of their names and where they're from and how they advocated for all of us, not just, and these are teens. These were young adults, during the 60s doing these rides. So yeah, it's identity is so crucial and important. And I think if when it going back to community, if the precedent was set, and it trickled down, that would be one way of really changing community. But as we've seen, history shows that sometimes we can't wait on it, wait on those who are in power. So we have to take some sort of advocacy. We have to take some sort of, and so communities, you and I,